Hello everyone and welcome to a slightly different review for me. Now, most of us likely have a lot more free time than usual at the moment, and when it comes to picking video games, you're likely looking for a massive time sink to pass the days. I, however, would like to offer an alternative, a game that, if you have the time, could reasonably start and finish over the course of a weekend. There's many such games I could talk about, but the one I'm going to today is a lesser known title called Rime. I'll be honest, the reason I picked this game is because I've had the footage for a video on Rime for over a year now. I wanted to talk about it, but I just didn't really know how. But with certain lockdown restrictions still present, a short and sweet experience is just the thing to recommend. It's also a very basic game. It opens on a young, nameless protagonist washed ashore on a mysterious island. Once he regains consciousness... once he regains... Oh! Once you realize you need to move the left stick, you can begin exploring the island. You'll be guided around by this magical fox that'll eventually lead you to this giant tower that you'll scale for the rest of the game, where you'll gradually uncover the backstory of the main character. That, along with this mysterious red-robed figure, does make for an intriguing mystery, ultimately unfolding in a pretty unexpected twist, which pulls the rug out from under you and reveals that this simple fantasy adventure has actually been an art house tale from the very beginning. It does make for a good surprise, even if it does lack the intended emotional impact for me, and if you play it for a second time like I did, you may find the lack of any foreshadowing a little disappointing. But the plot isn't really what's important here, it's the atmosphere and exploration of this island. And this is where I've struggled to review this game for the longest time, ironically because of how basic it is. You'll mostly be solving different environmental puzzles with your basic moveset. There's very little to the gameplay outside of swimming, pushing and carrying things around, yelling at orbs, these occasionally finicky but mostly fun Uncharted style climbing sections, and some bonus collectibles on the side. However, the game does do an excellent job of using all these abilities when it comes to the actual puzzles. This is the type of game I'm really into, where there's constant variety and imagination in how you pass obstacles. There's tons of different solutions you to figure out, and a lot of the game comes down to spending time doing just that. When I played the game a second time for footage, I raced through the whole thing in about 3 hours. That's not a critique, but do expect to find yourself on the same parts for a good amount of time on your first playthrough. It's been so long since I first played it now that I can't entirely remember how difficult certain parts were to figure out, but it's a calmly paced experience, so just take your time and eventually something should click. And like I said, it's a very varied game in its different scenarios. There's lots of creative gimmicks to play around with, so it's rarely dull. I won't spoil too much of it as the discovery is part of the fun, but one section that really stood out to me is this fight against this pterodactyl looking thing. It's the closest thing Rime has to a boss battle, and yet it feels true to the vibe the rest of the game achieves. You have all these breathing spots, and you'll be leaping and climbing your way around the area to defeat the creature instead of a more conventional one-on-one battle. There is some timing involved, but it's not overly dramatically intense, so it doesn't come off as a frantic showdown. It was such a unique way to do an encounter like that, and for how the rest of the game goes about its design, it fits very well too. You really get wrapped up in the world of Rime, not least for its fantastic atmosphere. The art style is clearly reminiscent of games like Wind Waker and Ico, but it's incredibly vivid looking, gorgeous, colourful, and overall just striking. You can almost feel the fresh breeze blowing through this island surrounded by an endless bright blue ocean. It's very pleasant. The music too is absolutely wonderful. There's rarely a moment without it playing, and it adds an ethereal feeling to the proceedings. It further sucks you into this world. It's just a really solid little puzzle game that should only take a few days to complete. And that's the main reason I recommend this game as an ideal weekend distraction. It's not a massive undertaking. I first played this game when I was away at an Airbnb for a couple of days, playing it in chunks, and it made for a really fun time that was kind of improved by being on this trip. Obviously, going somewhere to play something isn't always the most ideal choice, but hopefully you get my point that this is something that's easily consumable over a short period of time. It's available on all current gen consoles, so it's readily available to most gamers too. It's also very accessible to most people in general, regardless of their gaming expertise. My final recommendation is this. Pick it up, wait until you have a big chunk of time to kill before starting it, and spending a really good couple of days plowing through this great blend of imaginative gameplay and wonderful presentation that holds your attention from the beginning. Alternatively, wait until a rainy day to play the game and immerse yourself in this bright, warm land filled with intrigue, ingenuity, and a melancholy truth awaiting you at the top of the tower. However you choose to play it, it remains a small, charming journey that's well worth giving a go.